She thought she was marrying a crippled beggar. But on the day she tried to leave him, she discovered he owned half the continent. In the golden village of Mbale, where red dust kissed every footstep and baobab trees stood like ancient gods, lived a beautiful young woman named Zuri. Her laughter once fluttered like butterflies through the wind, but now her face was clouded. Her father, Chief Baraka, had made a decision that darkened her soul. She was to marry Obasi, a man confined to a wheelchair, who no one really knew much about. They only whispered that he was poor, crippled, and cursed. Zuri cried beneath the moonlight, her heart aching for her lost dreams. She had hoped for a strong warrior or a merchant who would take her across the seas. Instead, she stood in a wedding gown stitched with sorrow, beside a man who didn't even look her in the eye. Obasi, in a black tuxedo, looked calm as he placed a ring on her trembling hand. The entire village watched in silence, many with pity, some with curiosity. His wheelchair creaked as he turned, holding her hand gently, a gesture she did not return. But what Zuri didn't know was that Obasi held secrets, deep, powerful ones that could turn the winds of fate. He had agreed to the marriage not for pity or charity, but for purpose. He was not the man they all thought he was, and soon neither was Zuri. Zuri arrived at Obasi's home expecting a modest hut, perhaps with a leaking roof and a muddy floor. But as the ox-pulled cart turned past the thicket and onto a smooth stone path, her eyes widened. A towering mansion of red brick and black stone rose from the earth like a sleeping giant. It had silver lanterns on every corner, and carvings of panthers guarding its gates. "This is yours?" Zuri asked, not hiding her disbelief. Obasi, wheeling beside her, offered only a nod. His eyes, hidden behind dark sunglasses, gave nothing away. The servants, all dressed in tailored uniforms, bowed at their arrival. One opened the door, revealing marble floors, golden vases, and walls lined with paintings that looked expensive enough to buy the whole village. Each room was more breathtaking than the last, chandeliers of crystal, imported mahogany furniture, and silk curtains that danced in the breeze. Zuri, overwhelmed, finally turned to Obasi. "Who are you?" He chuckled softly, rolling toward the massive library. "Your husband." But he offered nothing more. In the days that followed, Obasi remained distant yet respectful. He gave her space, never forced her to do anything, and provided every comfort imaginable. Still, Zuri couldn't shake the feeling that the walls held stories, ones the village could never guess. She began to explore the mansion and stumbled upon locked doors, strange blueprints, and books in languages she didn't understand. One evening she found a golden laptop glowing in a room filled with screens. Files flashed open and closed, graphs, company seals, foreign currencies. A logo kept reappearing, OBX Group. Her fingers hovered above the mouse. Behind her, Obasi's voice floated in. "You're curious. That's good. But some truths, Zuri, are heavier than they seem." Zuri turned, heart pounding. "What is OBX Group?" Obasi gave her a long, unreadable stare. "The reason your father wanted this marriage." The wind whispered through the long corridors of Obasi's mansion, carrying secrets Zuri could almost hear but never fully grasp. She now wandered with cautious steps, not just as a bride, but as a seeker of truth. The next morning she awoke earlier than usual. Drawn by quiet footsteps, she followed the sound down a hidden staircase behind one of the bookshelves. It led to a basement that looked nothing like the rest of the grand estate. No gold, no art, just rows of glowing computer screens, papers pinned to walls, and a large map of Africa marked with red dots. Zuri moved closer to the largest screen. Her eyes scanned the title, OBX Group, Expansion Phase 4, Rural Tech Domination. She scrolled. Every district in their region had been mapped, with notes about land value, political leverage, and economic impact. Suddenly, Obasi's voice broke the silence. "Curiosity can be dangerous, Zuri." She turned, startled, but his expression was calm, almost amused. "You lied," she said. "You're not some poor disabled villager. You're a strategist, a builder, a man who plays the fool while owning the table," he finished. "I never claimed poverty. That was the story your father told you, because the truth was too heavy for his pride." Zuri stared at him, heart racing. "Then why did he force me to marry you?" Obasi wheeled closer. "Because he owed me more than money. He owed me his legacy, and I chose you not because I needed a bride but because I saw your fire. You have the mind of a lioness, and I needed a queen who could rule, not just sit pretty." Zuri reeled at his words. The insult, the compliment, the confession, it was too much. She stormed back upstairs and locked herself in her chamber, pacing. Outside, the world thought her pitiful, forced to marry a crippled man. Inside, she realized she was married to a king in disguise. But what did that make her? A pawn? Or something more? The next morning Zuri did not cry. She did not retreat. Instead, she dressed not in silk or lace, but in a bold crimson wrap with gold tribal patterns, the colors of queens in ancient Baal. Her eyes gleamed with something new, ambition. Obasi noticed immediately. "You look different." "I feel different," she replied. She had made her choice. If she was bound to this man by force, she would not be bound by ignorance. If this was her fate, she would bend it to her will. "I want to learn everything," she said firmly. "How OBX works, what you do, how you think. I want in." Obasi studied her long and hard. Then he nodded. "Good, let's begin." And so began Zuri's transformation. Each day, she trained beside Obasi in the secret chambers of the mansion. He showed her how markets moved like rivers, how leadership was a dance of patience and power. She learned to read financial reports, to negotiate in 3 languages, and to see through false promises with a single glance. He taught her about influence, not the kind earned by fear, but the kind carved by vision. Zuri discovered that Obasi, though bound to a wheelchair, was far from weak. His mind was unmatched, his strategies ruthless, and his network stretched across the continent. Politicians, tech giants, investors, they all listened when Obasi spoke. And now, they were beginning to listen when Zuri spoke too. One evening while studying investment data, she paused. "Why didn't you tell me everything from the start?" Obasi closed the folder. "Because power that is given is easily dismissed. Power that is earned changes people." Zuri thought about her old life, the village gossip, the pity in people's eyes, the man she thought she'd be married to. Now, she sat beside a man who had rebuilt her from within, not by charm, not by gifts, but by giving her a throne. Later that night the two walked, Obasi wheeling beside her, Zuri guiding with pride, through the great halls of the estate. The servants bowed, but this time not just to him, to them both. The girl who had once wept beneath the moon was now fire-wrapped in flesh. Months passed and the world outside Obasi's estate began to whisper a new name, Zuri Obasi, with a mix of awe and disbelief. Investors once wary now requested meetings with her. Foreign embassies sent her letters of invitation, and the OBX group, once hidden behind closed doors, now had a face as radiant and commanding as the morning sun. But the village of Mbale still clung to the old story. Poor Zuri, forced to marry the crippled man. That changed one warm afternoon. Chief Baraka, Zuri's father, sat in the village council, proudly retelling tales of his past bravery when a convoy of sleek black vehicles arrived. Out stepped men in suits, followed by Zuri herself, draped in regal Ankara fabric, her head held high, flanked by elite security guards. And beside her, emerging slowly from the final car, was Obasi. But this time he was not in a wheelchair. Gasps spread like wildfire. He walked slowly but surely, aided only by a cane. It was the first time anyone had seen him upright in over a decade. "Obasi can walk," someone whispered. "No," said another. Obasi was never broken. Zuri stepped forward before the council. "Today I return not as a girl who was traded, but as a partner in the largest African-owned tech empire in the region. You mocked what you did not understand. You buried gold and called it dust." Her voice cut through the silence like thunder across dry plains. Obasi stood beside her, no longer hiding. "The wheelchair was a choice, a test. Those who judged me never deserved my truth." Chief Baraka, once proud and imposing, lowered his eyes. The weight of greed and misjudgment crushed him in front of his people. That evening, Zuri and Obasi hosted a gathering in the village square. There were drums, dancing, and food, but most of all, there was respect, earned, commanded. And when Zuri looked into Obasi's eyes, she no longer saw mystery or pity. She saw her equal, her king, and herself, a queen forged in fire, betrayal, truth, and love.